Hello and welcome back to UQ. Today I am going to talk about the top 5 regrets of the dying, written by nurse and author Bronnie Ware. We all will inevitably face death someday. Take a moment to imagine, as you age or when faced with a severe illness, you find yourself on the verge of death, wishing you had lived differently. Tears of regret flow as you ponder, if only I had done things differently, why didn't I? But here's the reality. We cannot turn back time. Life offers us only one chance, and that chance is the present moment. We cannot go back to the past. We all want to live a life with fewer regrets, but it can be challenging to know how to achieve that. So, let's explore together how to live a life without regrets. Bronnie Ware, the author of the book The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, worked as a palliative care nurse, providing care to many patients in their final moments. Through her first-hand experiences, she gathered stories from individuals who were facing death head-on, forming the basis of this remarkable book. When you read this book, you have the opportunity to engage in heartfelt conversations with those who have confronted death. It allows you to deeply reflect on your own life and make choices that lead to a future without regrets. Bronnie herself eloquently expresses the following sentiment within its pages. If we are able to face our own inevitable death with honest acceptance, before we have reached that time, then we shift our priorities well before it is too late. This gives us the opportunity to put our energies into directions of true value. Once we acknowledge that limited time is remaining, although we don't know if that is years, weeks, or hours, we are less driven by ego or by what others think of us. Instead, we are more driven by what our hearts truly want. This acknowledgement of our inevitable, approaching death, offers us the opportunity to find greater purpose and satisfaction in the time we have remaining. This book is highly recommended, and I encourage you to read it yourself to potentially transform your life. In this video, I'll start by highlighting the main conclusions. The top 5 regrets of the dying are as follows. 1. I wish I had lived a life true to myself. 2. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. 3. I wish I had expressed my true feelings. 4. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. 5. I wish I had allowed myself to be happier. It is likely that when we face our own mortality, we may experience similar regrets to those expressed by many others at the end of their lives. The authentic voices captured in these final moments offer profound lessons for us to learn from. With the time we still have, our mission is to live a life that avoids these regrets. You don't know when your own life will come to an end, but by making efforts to change yourself now, you can strive to live a life without regrets. It's possible to reclaim something important that you may have given up on. However, if you don't take action now, you will only be haunted by regret in your final moments. The only path forward is to start moving from this moment. So, let's explore each of the regrets that arise in the face of death, one by one. The first regret is I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Now, ask yourself, are you currently living a life true to yourself? Are you doing what you truly want, or are you merely following societal rules and drifting along without much thought? Are you living a life that deep down doesn't feel right? Are you ignoring the voice inside you that expresses discontent? Living a life of complacency is easy, but it will inevitably lead to regret. Regularly contemplating death can bring fulfillment to our present lives. Humans are easily influenced by their environment, often losing sight of what truly matters. That's why we need to remind ourselves regularly. The author worked as a home care nurse and had a patient named Grace. Grace had endured decades of sacrifice and submission in her marriage. Her husband was violent, and she lived a life of compliance, unable to defy him. Consequently, Grace had always dreamed of freedom, to travel without restrictions, to live a simple and happy life free from his control. Eventually, Grace's husband fell ill and had to move to a nursing home. Grace felt a sense of relief, believing that she could finally live the life she had longed for. However, shortly after attaining the freedom she had yearned for, Grace was diagnosed with a terminal illness and became bedridden. Faced with death, she regretted not having the strength to pursue her desires and live true to herself. She was angry at herself for living a life dictated by societal expectations, even though she had chosen that path. She was frustrated by her own helplessness, driven by fear of the future. In her final moments, Grace said to the author, "Live true to yourself. Don't worry about what others think." This anecdote reminds us that we must seize the things we want to do without delay. Opportunities pass by in the blink of an eye. If we don't act now, it's as if we'll never have the chance again. We don't know when our time will come to an end. We should let go of the fear of others' opinions and societal expectations because, ultimately, they become insignificant. Are you living a life true to yourself? Are you currently living your life with honesty and authenticity? Of course, it's not possible to live every aspect of life true to yourself. We have responsibilities, financial obligations, and work that needs to be done. However, there are certain things you should never compromise. Those are the things you should pursue right now. This moment is the youngest you'll ever be in your future life, so do what you truly want to do now. The second regret is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. John, who is now 90 years old, is suffering from a terminal illness. As he lies in bed, gazing at the ceiling, he confides to the author, "I wish I hadn't worked so hard." John had dedicated his entire life to work. He had a wife named Margaret, who always longed for quality time together and intimacy with John. However, John would always brush her off and prioritize work, day after day. When they both grew older, John finally understood Margaret's loneliness and promised to retire in a year. Margaret was overjoyed, but just 3 months before John's retirement, she succumbed to illness and passed away. John had devoted his entire life to work, perhaps earning a high income, but he had lost the most precious thing in life, time spent with loved ones. He had worked diligently and finally retired, only to be left with money and a void of loneliness. Now, after hearing this heart-wrenching anecdote, what do you think? Earning money to sustain our lives is important, but if it comes at the cost of sacrificing time with loved ones or doing what you truly want, it's worth reevaluating your priorities. The third regret is, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. A 97-year-old man named Joseph survived the Holocaust and migrated to Australia. The Holocaust refers to the genocide and mass killings perpetrated by Hitler's army against Jewish people during World War II. Joseph had also been placed in a concentration camp but managed to survive. It was an unimaginably harsh life. To avoid dwelling on his painful past, Joseph threw himself into work. He worked tirelessly to protect himself and his family. Joseph never shared his life story with his family or friends. He didn't want to deliberately recount the painful experiences of being in a concentration camp. Instead, he taught them about earning money and the value of money, in an effort to forget his difficult past. As a result of Joseph's dedication, his family never faced financial difficulties. One day, one of his sons visited Joseph, not because he wanted to see his father but because he was interested in Joseph's wealth. It wasn't entirely unjustified because Joseph had always talked about work and money at home. Bronnie, a caregiver, praised Joseph for ensuring his family didn't struggle, regardless of how they perceived him. However, with only a few weeks left to live, Joseph said, shedding tears, "My family doesn't truly know who I am. I wish they did." Joseph couldn't bring himself to reveal his painful past and his true self throughout his life. He didn't want to burden his family and friends with his difficult stories. It was an action driven by his kindness but also a sign of his weakness. If only he could have shown his true self to his family, how wonderful would that have been? Joseph departed this world, never having shared the hardships of his life with anyone. Not expressing our true thoughts and feelings is something many of us experience every day. We become hesitant, considerate of others, and end up being dishonest with ourselves for the sake of being kind. Regardless of the reasons, it can lead to a lifetime of regrets. The fourth regret is I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. Research has shown that human relationships are what bring happiness to our lives. No matter how much money or fame one has, without friends, it is meaningless. It's like having $1 billion and living alone on a deserted island. It is through friends, with whom we share joy and excitement, that our lives become meaningful. No matter how busy we are, it is important to remember to stay in touch with our friends. Friendships are fragile, and when communication breaks down, they gradually lose their vibrancy. Thinking that we have a good relationship with someone and it's okay not to stay in touch is a mistake. We should make a conscious effort to maintain communication. Friendship is a fleeting thing, and when contact is lost, it gradually fades away. Don't assume that because you have a good relationship with someone, it's okay not to stay in touch. Take the time to reach out and maintain that connection. The fifth regret is I wish I had let myself be happier. Rosemary was a severely intimidating and arrogant elderly woman. She had the rare experience of being the first female executive in her state, which shaped her personality. The defining factor in her character was the traumatic experiences she had endured in her youth. Rosemary was originally a submissive person, but she suffered from domestic violence from her husband, both mentally and physically, leaving her battered and broken. Summoning courage, she decided to divorce him. However, at that time, divorce was considered unacceptable, and Rosemary sought to climb the ladder in a male-dominated society to gain acceptance from her family. She became a strong and domineering woman, determined not to be taken advantage of. Even in her old age, Rosemary remained intimidating and strong-willed. At the age of 80, she received a terminal diagnosis and began dismissing caregivers who didn't meet her standards, using her typical intimidating behavior. Bronnie, who was also subjected to her intimidating attitude, didn't give up and made continuous efforts to bridge the gap. Through persistent engagement, the walls between the two gradually melted away. Rosemary started showing more smiles. One day, she suddenly spoke to Bronnie, saying, "I should have allowed myself to be happier. What a miserable life I had. I thought I didn't deserve to be happy. But that's not true. I realized it when I felt happy laughing with you this morning. Even though I still think I brought shame upon myself by divorcing and tarnishing my family's name." Rosemary had convinced herself that she didn't deserve to be happy. Even though she had suffered the most, she had ingrained the belief that she wasn't entitled to happiness. But through her interactions with Bronnie, she began to believe that she could allow herself to feel happy. However, breaking the habit of negative thinking and self-imposed unhappiness is not easy. Rosemary expressed that she wanted to be happy but didn't know how. That's when Bronnie suggested pretending to be happy. By dedicating just 30 minutes a day to refrain from negativity and focusing on smiling and saying positive things, Rosemary learned that happiness is a matter of one's current mindset. If it's challenging to have a happy mindset naturally, one should make a conscious effort to practice it. By continuing to pretend to be happy, Rosemary started to believe that she deserved to be happy, and her laughter increased even more. Her values began to change. For the remaining 2 months of her life, Rosemary was able to experience happiness. She found the courage to be happy at the very end of her life. Happiness doesn't require any conditions. All it takes is the courage to embrace it at all times. It doesn't matter what kind of person you are, you have the right to smile, have fun, and feel happy. There are many people who have had unfortunate circumstances from birth, or who face unjust hardships and painful experiences. The world is unequal. But those who feel that way are the ones who need the courage to be happy the most. Today, I introduced the book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. To recap, they were: 1. I wish I had lived true to myself. 2. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. 3. I wish I had expressed my true feelings. 4. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. 5. I wish I had pursued more happiness. However, the true essence of this book lies not only in these conclusions but also in the various episodes that portray the profound moments at death's door. By reading this book, you can experience these emotions firsthand, rather than just acquiring knowledge. It may become a book that serves as a catalyst for changing your life. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative or enjoyable, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.